Hello BookTube, this is Leena from Lukunurkka and this is the International Book Tag. So the tag was made by JD. The idea of this tag is to go through your collection and see where the authors came from. And from those you pick up one author or book per country and you tell what you got. So I was not tagged by anyone, but I saw this done by Tanja in Tanja Panda. And as I needed something easy to do to, bring me back from my holiday mode, I decided to nab it. One thing I was not 100% sure of was that whether or not you only consider the birth country of the author, or do you need to find authors who still live and write in that country, which makes it much harder tags to do. So I was lazy and chose to use the place of birth as a measure stick. Links for both Tanya's and JD's videos will be down below. So first of all, let's get the easy ones done quickly. UK. Now, if I was completely honest and just look at my bookshelves, there is this one author that kinda, pops out. And if you know anything about me and my reading, you would know this already. But then again, I thought he would be too obvious of a choice. So instead of him, I reached out for Rivers of London by Ben Aronovich. I hope I say that right. I guess that is a disclaimer for the rest of the video. I hope I say these names right. He has brought in this Peter Grant series, and The Rivers of London is the first book of that. I think you could categorize this as an urban fantasy. The main character, Peter Grant, is a cop that learns that he is the wizard. And then he transfers to this different police unit that is specialized in this area. And there we go. Actually, that was one of the things I loved about this. Normally in detective stories, I always feel like that they use the police force as more a nuisance than anything else. Here, he was doing some of his own detective work and his own inspections, sure. He had the network, he had the resources, and I had never seen a book mixed with fantasy that you have those, so I enjoyed that. I have also read The Moon Over Soho and Whispers Underground, but I know there's more. If you like fantasy that is deeply rooted in city, I recommend him. So, next, the other country that nobody is surprised to find in this list, USA. Now, I was a bit surprised myself, because I thought that I would not have to look up who is USA-based author. I guess that I would just grab a nearest book and that would be it. But no, there are surprisingly little. I have way more books from UK than USA. Who would have thought? In the end, I brought up this well-read collection of H.P. Lovecraft stories. And it includes the stories The Rats in the Walls, The Color Out of Space, one of my favorites, The Dunwich Horror, and At the Mountain of Madness, another one that is one of my favorites. What can I tell you about H.P. Lovecraft? If you have not heard of his name ever, I think you would have heard of his creation. After all, he's the guy who created Cthulhu. He wrote his books in 20s and his writing style can be a bit dry if you are not used to that. And his horror comes from the idea that we are really small. And I mean we as a humanity. And that there are powers so much bigger that they do not even care. We do not matter. And his stories are very heavy on how this realization brings people to madness. Did not care of the Rats in the Walls, love The Color of Space. Dunwich Horror was okay if memory serves. Also surprisingly positive at the end. And The Mountain of Madness was great. I think all of his stories are short stories, though be warned, he is really racist. There's no doubt. So if you don't have a stomach for that, stay away. So let's continue with the tag and let's go back to Europe. Next up is France, and I have chosen, I guess my only French author I have, Victor Hugo. I own one edition of Les Miserables. How do you say that? I have no idea. And then I have The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Now, I have not read Les Miserables, but I have read The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I quite enjoyed it. Even though there is long parts of the book that have nothing to do with the plot. You can just skim those. If you are interested in really detailed descriptions of Notre Dame itself, all the architectural details, this continues, 10, 15 pages, something like that. And then you go up to one of the towers, and then he starts describing the Paris around it. Could be interesting, yes, but I remember skimming through that part because I was like, when is the plot coming back? And actually, one of my favorite jokes about Victor Hugo, that when you go to Les Miserables and you go to the first page, the third sentence, although this detail has no connection whatever with the real substance of what we are about to relate. I mean, look at this. Look at this quote. He could not even go with a single page without distracting himself with something else. Old classics, but I quite liked them. And next we go to Netherlands, and I have a few books from Charles de Lint. The only book of him that I have both read and own is Memory and Dream. I have also read Dreams Underfoot, and I own Jack of Kinrawan. Now his fantasy is contemporary, but it is more mystical and dreamlike. At least Dreams Underfoot was, and the most of the Memory and Dream. Not the ending though. I like the Memory and Dream because it is about this artist that can bring her art to life, and the plot involves with that ability. Then there is somebody who is wanting to use it to his own ends. If you like lighter contemporary fantasy, go with this. Okay, next up is Spain. I have one Spanish author here. He is Carlos Ruiz Zafón. I own two of his books, Shadow of the Wind and The Prisoner of Heaven. The funny thing is, I have not read either of these, but I have read The Prince of Mist, and I quite like the style of that, which is the reason I bought these. But they are waiting. Okay, the next one is from Swedish, and this was a surprise to me too. I did not know I had any Swedish books, because when I thought about Swedish literature that I read, it's mostly thrillers and mysteries and murder things, and I do not own those books. I borrow them, I read them and return them, and I was so sure I don't have anything. But no, I have Maria Gripe's novel, Vieras aikojen takaa, or Agnes Cecilia. This was doubly surprising because this is one of those books that I have bought because I read this many times when I was a child, and I loved the atmosphere in the book. Another book I put in the same category is The Other Side of Silence by Margaret Mahy, who is from New Zealand. And I was so sure I had one of her books, but no, I had this, and this is from Swedish. And if you had asked me before, I would say, oh yeah, those childhood stories that I read that have this kind of melancholic and haunting atmosphere, yeah, they are from the same author. Apparently not. I remember reading this many times, but if you are asking me any details of the plot, I could not tell. I am sure that when I read this again, it will feel very familiar. But you know, some of those books that even though you read them many times and you know you did, they can't get mixed up. And I think that was happening here. Next, a little bit more recent read. Laiton matkaaja, paperittomuus rajojen valta by Shahram Khosravi. And he is from Iran. And this book heavily deals with his immigration, the route and everything that happens with the travel from Iran to India and finally to Sweden. Now this is non-fiction book. The English name of this book is Illegal Traveler, an Autoethnography of Borders. It has both academic parts of ideas with immigration and borders, but also his own story. I think this is a really good read, especially when this issue is still current. Next was again a little bit surprise. I thought that for Australia I would have to go with Markus Zusak's Book Thief, even though I have not read it. But when I was digging through my shelves, I find out I had another book that is from Australia, and I actually have read that one. So we are going with that. This book is from Trudy Canavan, and it's the first book of the Black Magicians trilogy, and it's called The Magician's Guild. I bought this book at one point at random. If my memory serves, it turned out to be really good. The things I remember about it was that I was not used to the idea of magic and fantasy happening in the city, and this is exactly where this is situated, in the fantasy city. I was used to, Tolkien-style groups traveling across the land, and I really was drawn in this high-action city fantasy. But yeah, do not remember much more about it. Now then, I have few books that I am in the middle of. I am in the middle of Armoa auringon alla, kuubalaisia nykynovelleja, which is a collection of short stories from Cuban authors. And as most short story collections go, some are good, some are meh. There hasn't been any great short stories yet. The better ones have been on a good level. And I don't think this has been translated to English. Next one. Then I am in the middle of Kyung-suk Shin's book Please Look After Mom, where this one's family's mother disappears. And while they are looking for her, they are finding out stuff that their mother has not talked about. And they have to kind of question themselves how well they actually knew their own mother. Actually, I should go back to this. I really enjoyed the part I had read. First of all, I was going to go with the Taivaslaulu by Pauliina Rauhala, because that is the book I have actually read. But since I thought I would like to promote Finnish authors, and this has not been in my knowledge translated, I thought that would be a little bit silly. So I chose a book I have not finished, and that is Quantum Thief by Hannu Rajaniemi. The part I have read is interesting. It's a sci-fi story where the main character is a master thief, and he was in a prison, and one woman giving him opportunity to be free after he does one more job. I both remember liking and being frustrated with this book because the sci-fi was really imaginative, which is great, but it also slows my reading down because I have to really, really pay attention. In other cases, in fantasy, the words and tropes and images and metaphors they use are familiar to me, but not with this one. With several times I had to go back and be like, what was that? Then the last one is Sinut by Umayya Abuhanna, which I have not read. But I have read her earlier book. She was born in Israel, and the back of the book says she has been Finnish from the year 81. So this book deals with a time when she moves to Finland. I have read another book from her dealing with her childhood in Israel. That book was called Nurinkurin, and I would definitely recommend it to all Finnish people. It was great. So, I think that's all. I feel that as I was not tagged myself, I do not want to tag anybody else. But if you are like me, and you want to do a tag that has some meaning behind it, go for this one. Nab it for yourself and make a video and look into what your shells are like. If you have not been paying attention to your reading, it may be really eye-opening. I think this is all for now. Bye!